Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. In today's episode, are the Phillies going to make a change at leadoff hitter in 2025? Might surprise you with what I think they're going to do.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You may know me from some of my other work in the sports talk space. I've been on air over at 97.5 The Fanatic doing sports talk radio here in Philadelphia for 5 years. I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for 3 seasons, and this is now my 4th year as the host of Locked On Phillies. Please make sure that you're rating and reviewing if you're listening to this in podcast form. We're available wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube and you're yet to subscribe to the Locked On Phillies YouTube channel, please do that. It will get you notifications when new episodes are posted. It's free. It's easy. It's also a great way to help us out here on Locked On Phillies. It's a great way to say thank you for the content if you do enjoy what we put together on Locked On Phillies and the Locked On Podcast Network. So I appreciate everyone who's done that and everyone who's going to do that. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Got some interesting conversation on today's show. The first thing that we're going to get into, we're going to discuss a change at leadoff for the Philadelphia Phillies in 2025. It's something that's kind of loosely been floated around as the team prepares for spring training. We're also going to look at the latest move in the National League East and how the path has gotten even tougher for the Philadelphia Phillies to repeat as National League East champions in 2025. And I'm going to round out by just talking about my level of surprise in the Philadelphia Phillies not making a big move this offseason, like a big sizable signing, I would say, or like a trade that rivals more of the big time stuff that's been done around baseball, not just like the Jesus Luzardo thing. So we'll discuss that as well. But I want to start off with this leadoff thing because there's been this conversation that's starting to gain steam as we get closer to spring training about the Philadelphia Phillies maybe making a change at the leadoff position in their order. Now, we know for the past couple of years, it has been designated hitter Kyle Schwarber. Just this past year, he set the Major League Baseball all-time record for leadoff home runs in a single season. So that's something that he passed Alfonso Soriano to do, and he had an outstanding year. Like, he had a really, really underrated good year for what the Philadelphia Phillies probably wanted him to improve upon, which was just becoming a better overall hitter from that leadoff spot. He still showed off the power, but he really used the whole field more than we've seen him do in the past. So it's not that Kyle Schwarber had a bad year, but part of the conversation with the Phillies is the offensive approach, right? We're going to talk about that till I'm blue in the face, till you're tired of hearing about it all season long. That will be the conversation. It will be the conversation in the postseason, really until this team wins the World Series. You will be looking at a team that has questions about their offensive identity, the approach, all of this stuff that we've had criticisms about the Phillies in the past on. And part of that conversation, when you don't make major changes to the lineup, and we're going to talk about that in the final segment, but you may want to move around who's batting where, right? The only major change to the lineup that's coming this year is Max Kepler is going to be playing left field. Now, Max Kepler could have a really good year for the Philadelphia Phillies. I don't think he's going to be an all-star caliber player, but like that can create change. But 8 of the 9 spots are probably going to be exactly the same, at least who's playing those positions. So while there's criticism of the Phillies running it back, they can still change the way they approach going about the order. Maybe there is a more optimal way to do this if you're Rob Thompson when you're putting together the lineup. And the leadoff conversation, like you would say, who's going to bat leadoff if not Kyle Schwarber? And I know what some people are saying. Connor, you've said for years on this podcast, Kyle Schwarber is a leadoff hitter. Stop questioning it. Stop trying to change it. He's great as a leadoff hitter. This team produces offensively with him in the leadoff spot. He has great assets as a leadoff hitter. You can't just sleepwalk through the first at bat or even the first pitch of the game. He communicates very well with his teammates on what he's seeing in that first at bat to go ahead and give data, give information to the dugout on what the pitcher has that day. Like, he's very, very important in doing that and setting the tone for this lineup. All of these things remain true. So this is not so much a, well, Kyle Schwarber can't bat leadoff. It's a, can we change the identity of this team by moving someone else up into that spot. And there's really only one guy for the job. In the past, I've talked about Bryson Stott as a potential guy that could take over that leadoff responsibility one day. I do think further down the line, that's still a possibility. But he had a year last year where he did not put together a great season. Now, he struggled at points with his offensive approach, and he's still a young player, and he's a guy that you look at and say, okay, well, you still got to figure out kind of who you're going to be as a major league hitter. We think he can be a really good one, but we don't know exactly what your approach is yet, or rather, it seems Bryson Stott didn't know what his approach was going to be this past year. So you want a guy that's going to be able to be the prototypical leadoff hitter, speed, hit for average, maybe show a little bit of pop, be able to recognize pitches, see the zone and everything like that, set the tone for the lineup. And there's one guy on the team that fits that perfectly. No, I'm kidding. It's not Johan Ross. It is Trey Turner. And that's an idea that has been talked about a little bit as the Phillies get ready to go into spring training. Could Trey Turner be used in a leadoff spot this year? And it sounds like Rob Thompson is receptive to trying that. Now, what does trying that mean? Is that spring training at bats? Is that once a week we're going to have Trey Turner in the leadoff spot? Like, what exactly does that look like? I don't know. But I do think that we're going to see more Trey Turner in the leadoff spot than we have, or anyone besides Kyle Schwarber, since Schwarber became a member of this team and Rob Thompson took over for Joe Girardi and put Schwarber in that leadoff spot. Like, this will be the year where I think you see that altered more than we have in the past. And I don't necessarily think it's a crazy idea. Even though I've been a champion of Kyle Schwarber batting leadoff for this team, I do think that the offensive approach, it's undeniable that something has to change with the way that they approach hitting as just a lineup. And part of that may be putting Kyle Schwarber in a spot where he maybe doesn't get that first pitch fastball. Guys just try and get one over to start the game and take somebody deep, but it changes the dynamic of how you have to pitch to this lineup. You have to go ahead and work with a guy that's going to get, not so much get on base, because Kyle Schwarber gets on base. His on base percentage is solid, but a guy that can swing the bat a little bit more consistently as just an overall hitter than Kyle Schwarber, a guy that the speed puts more pressure on you on the base paths than Kyle Schwarber. Like, Trey Turner is the prototypical leadoff hitter by his just attributes as a baseball player. And again, this is not a Kyle Schwarber's not getting the job done. It's a, if you move Kyle Schwarber, can the lineup overall be better? And some people are screaming at their computer right now, or their phone, or wherever you're listening to this or watching this, and saying, I've been saying this for years, and now all of a sudden you've come around. Again, this is something that is, I don't want to say a last resort, but the Phillies have kind of been forced into trying something different because their offensive approach has not carried them to where the team wants to be. Again, it's not that Kyle Schwarber can't bat leadoff, but it's now a couple seasons worth of sample size to say, man, we've had the same kind of issues in the big spots with how the lineup works. So just think about it this way, right? Kyle Schwarber gets on base. He's not a threat to steal. It's going to be harder to move runners up behind him because of the speed. All due respect to Kyle Schwarber. Love the guy. We know he's not the most fleet of foot. That is a little bit different. And also, he's a guy that, because of his power, he's a little bit more of a strikeout threat to hurt the Philadelphia Phillies lineup at points. Now, Trey Turner, on the other hand, he did not see the slider well this past year. He got a bunch of them. He's probably going to get a lot of them this year too. That, I expect him to see a career high in sliders again, and he's also saw a career high in sliders in 2024. But he's a guy that just creates more opportunity when he does get on base, and that could lead to pitching guys like whoever's batting in the 2-hole now, pitching that guy different. Normally that would be Trey Turner's spot. Pitching Bryce Harper in the 3-hole spot different. Like, if you were going to put someone in the 2-hole, like maybe it's Alec Bohm. Maybe he bats second. Maybe it's Nick Castellanos. I don't know if I love him in that spot. Maybe it's JT Realmuto. I feel like JT Realmuto could kind of be a good power balanced 2-hole guy if he brings back that gap-to-gap power. Like, whoever it is, though, they may have more advantageous at-bats than they would with Kyle Schwarber on the base pass because it's just one less thing to think about with Schwarber out there, one more thing to think about with Turner out there. And Turner swiped more bags last year than he did his first year in Philadelphia. He looked more comfortable, more aggressive on the base pass. I'm not saying Trey Turner goes in and opening day lineup, it's Turner leading off for the Philadelphia Phillies, and that's what you see for like 140 games of 2025. I don't think that's what's going to happen because Kyle Schwarber is a weapon in the leadoff spot. But I do think it's time for the Philadelphia Phillies to try to alter the lineup more than Rob Thompson has in the past. It's not what he's done as a manager of the Philadelphia Phillies, but what he's done has not gotten them over the hump. And you can't just say, okay, well, we'll get to the postseason and then we'll have Trey Turner there. You got to develop this consistency. You've got to prove the concept over the course of the season. And this is going to be the year where I think we see more and more of it. And I am not opposed, and nobody should be opposed to Trey Turner becoming the everyday leadoff hitter if this is proven to be a more successful way to go about it, right? Like this doesn't happen with Bryson Stott. This doesn't happen with Johan Rojas. This doesn't happen with Brandon Marsh. This doesn't happen with guys that are okay to slightly above average major league hitters. That you have Trey Turner. This guy is an all-star, all MLB caliber player when he's at his best. That's why you should try this. It's not something that you're going to do with a maybe option, but it could also go terribly wrong. You could see Trey Turner have strikeout issues again. You could see him not have the approach you need to start off games. You could start off on a bad foot. And I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know what this looks like because I've been so consistently, and the Phillies have been so consistently focused on having Kyle Schwarber in that spot, but it sounds like they're ready to come around on it. I'm ready to come around on it. And I know there's people in the fan base that have been begging for this for years, but if you're someone like me who has liked Kyle Schwarber in the leadoff spot, I don't think you're going to see them completely go away from it, but they're going to try stuff. And that should make you feel good because for everyone who's anti-run it back, anti-same players again this year, anti-insanity, the definition, we all know it, just doing the same thing, expecting a different result. I think that this is a good sign that the Philadelphia Phillies are accepting that they're going to need to do things different this year, and they're not letting the ego of we won 95 games, we won the division, get in the way of, hey, could we be doing things better? So I'm not relinquishing the point that Kyle Schwarber should have been the leadoff hitter the past couple of years, but I am saying that now is the time where I would like to see them try something different. It seems like they're looking to try something different, and that I think to a lot of people would be a very, very welcome change to the Phillies lineup, right or wrong. And we'll find out in due time if it is the right move. So let me know what you think. Should Trey Turner be the leadoff hitter for the Philadelphia Phillies in 2025? Would you split the time? How would you vary it? I've already told you my thoughts on how they would break that down, but I think we're going to see that in spring training. But you never really see a full lineup in spring training of all major league guys. I think we're going to see it in the regular season, and maybe it pays dividends. Maybe all of a sudden something's unlocked by having Kyle Schwarber, and I would expect Kyle Schwarber to bat in a cleanup spot behind Bryce Harper. Maybe something is unlocked by moving him to the middle of this lineup. I don't know, but there's only one way to find out, and the way to do that is go ahead and put him there and try it for a couple times and see how it plays out over the course of the season. Coming up next, speaking of power hitters in the National League East, the Mets got better. Pete Alonso is back in New York, and while it's not a long-term deal, it is one that makes this year more difficult. We'll discuss what that changes for the Philadelphia Phillies' path to repeating as NL East champions as we continue today's episode. But let's talk about game time first, because attending NFL playoff games is an unforgettable experience that brings fans together. You got the big one coming up. Listen, maybe you're down there in New Orleans. Maybe you want to go to the big game. You still got time, because Game Time, they can get you tickets in a moment's notice. It's a great place to do it. You're going to have the experience of a lifetime if you do that. They also have other great events like comedy, concerts, theater, all of that stuff, different sports that you can get tickets to. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You got a lot of great opportunities to see great stuff. And if you're just sitting on your couch watching on TV, you're missing some of it. Go ahead and check out Game Time. They have all the features you need to make sure your ticket buying experience and your experience at the game is as easy, as fun, as memorable as possible. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll even get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed with our friends over at Game Time. All right, so Pete Alonso goes back to the New York Mets, and I told you guys about this earlier on in the offseason. We've done previous episodes on this. This is not good for the Philadelphia Phillies. Teams in the division, getting good players, bad for your team. Seems to be simple. This ain't rocket science, folks. If Pete Alonso was to go to another team in the American League or another team in the National League that was not quite as competitive, and the Mets lose one of their locker room leaders, one of their power hitters, main lineup mainstays, that would have been a blow. And credit to Steve Cohen and the New York Mets for finding a way to get a deal done. It's not a long-term deal, so they're still going to have to figure out what the situation is long-term with Alonso, but we're looking at this year. And now when you look at the Phillies' path to the NL East title, it's certainly not easy. It's certainly not easy. I'm very ready to call the National League East the best division in baseball. I think you have three bona fide World Series caliber teams. The Mets played in the NLCS last year. That alone puts them in the conversation. Oh, and by the way, they got this Juan Soto guy. Now Pete Alonso comes back. Francisco Lindor is there. They've proven that they can win with kind of a patchwork rotation because they've found a way to make that work last year. Now, I think the Mets take a step back postseason wise this year. I don't think they go on another crazy run like that. And you might say that's nuts to say with Juan Soto joining that team, but they had kind of that magic last year. I don't know that that's sustainable magic, but Juan Soto could be a monster for them, and I could look like an idiot for saying that. I think they're a very good team. I think if you don't have them as a possible World Series team, you're crazy. The Atlanta Braves, down there in Georgia, they were out of the picture due to injuries this past year. They kind of had the nightmare season from hell. That's not going to happen again. And they're a really talented team. And they have run the division for a long time. And the Phillies got an opportunity this past year because the Braves got hurt and lost a bunch of guys, some for the year, some just back and forth throughout the season. But and the Phillies deserved to win the NL East. They were a great team. 95 wins, that's a really strong mark by the Philadelphia Phillies last year. But don't let it be lost on you that the Atlanta Braves are going to be a much improved team this year compared to what they were last year when everything was all said and done with the injuries and the way their season played out. I mean, Atlanta is a World Series contender. No doubt in my mind about that. They would have been this past year without the injuries, most likely. I'd say it's hard to project that out because they lost so many guys so early, but the talent is undeniable. The year before they were considered that. The year before that they were considered that. They're going to be right back in the mix for the division. And then the Philadelphia Phillies, of course, are World Series contenders. They're a team that we know their pedigree and we know what their focus is. But to have two other World Series contenders in the National League East makes your job so tough. Look at the NL Central, for example, right? How many World Series contending teams are in the NL Central? I'd be willing to wager it's zero. I don't think any team in the NL Central has a chance. Sorry, there are going to be some people on the Locked On MLB channel that host other podcasts for other teams that get annoyed at me with how I break this down, but the NL Central doesn't have a World Series contending team. Some solid teams, no one's going to win it all from that division. The NL West, they've got the Dodgers. Outside of the Dodgers, though, who are you really looking at? Are you looking at the Giants or the Padres, the Diamondbacks? I mean, again, good teams. Some better than good teams. I would say some great teams, but World Series contenders with how they're going to have to compete. And we don't even have to mention the Colorado Rockies, all due respect. It's going to be tough for anyone to compete in that division with the Los Angeles Dodgers. So they're going to get victimized by having to play a juggernaut multiple times, like a lot of times this year in their scheduling. I think the NL West could have one of those sneaky magic teams again, like we saw with the Diamondbacks in 2023. But I could argue they only have one World Series contender. At most, we can call it two if a team goes nuts and tries to keep up with the Dodgers at the trade deadline. Let's go to the American League. I'd say the Yankees are a World Series contender, considering they played in it this past year, and the Orioles, and I would still put them in that mark because of just the talent. I don't think the Red Sox are there yet. The Rays are not there. I don't know. The AL Central probably doesn't. They'll have one. I'll give them the Cleveland Guardians, maybe the Kansas City Royals, but at most they're getting two. And then you look at the American League West, and I mean, that's a nightmare. division and not in a good way. I don't see a tougher division in baseball than the National League East. And the Philadelphia Phillies are going to have a really, really hard time winning this division for the second straight year. Now, it's not that I don't think that they can do it, but just looking at what they're up against, there may be no contending team outside of the NL East with a tougher path to winning a World Series, especially considering that the National League still is going to run through LA. And whoever comes out of the NL East is going to eventually have to probably beat the Dodgers at some point, or whoever ends up winning as a wild card team coming out of the NL East. Like, none of these NL East teams have a path to the World Series that doesn't go through LA, in my opinion, where we stand right now. Crazier things have happened. We saw it happen with the Braves with like injuries and stuff this past year and the way their season imploded quick. Not rooting for injuries for anyone, but like things can change quickly with the outlook of a team. But Pete Alonso is just a small piece to look at the NL East and just say, wow, it has been a really, really strong offseason for the New York Mets. The Braves, you expect them to bounce back without having to do too much because they're just getting healthy. And the Phillies, I mean, they're still an incredibly talented team. It's going to be, as the meme goes, absolute cinema in the National League East this year. It's a good thing to have like really competitive baseball and have a fun division. Like the best division in baseball, you're going to feel like you earned it if you won it. And when we get close to the season, I'll do my predictions on who's going to win it and the Phillies win totals. And we'll do our roundtable with all the hosts of the NL East teams podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. So we'll have plenty of that stuff as we get closer to the actual season. We're not even to pitchers and catchers reporting yet, but Pete Alonso going back to the Mets, I long said, you add Juan Soto, you subtract Pete Alonso, you get better. You get like clearly, definitively better, but you lose a big piece of what they did this past year. Now he's back, and now it's just like, man, Steve Cohen on one side and the Dodgers on the other side and the Braves waiting in the wings. The National League is a monster this year, and the Phillies, they're going to have to really be on their A game if they want to not just like repeat as NL East champions, but have success in the postseason again. We talked earlier this week about this being a really big year for the Philadelphia Phillies, or maybe that was last week's episode. But it's now just not just a really big year. It's a really big year at a really tough spot. Baseball season, folks. It is going to be a remarkable year to see how this plays out in the NL East and for the Philadelphia Phillies. Coming up next, speaking of those big acquisitions for teams in the division, big additions this offseason, how surprised are we that the Phillies didn't make a big move? As we get closer to pitchers and catchers reporting, I don't think there's a big move coming. I think the roster's pretty set. But how surprising is it that they didn't? We're going to look back, and hindsight is 2020 type of argument on what in the world happened with this offseason. Not that it was necessarily a bad thing, but it's disappointing to a lot of fans. So we'll talk about that coming up as we wrap up today's episode. But I want to tell you about Prize Picks first. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. They got over 10 million members, billions in winnings awarded. Prize Picks, they make it fun and simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. You just pick more or less on at least two players' projections. And if you're right, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. Prize Picks even has a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw 1 yard to win. Now, the Eagles' defense is really good. They might stop Patrick Mahomes from doing that. No, that's basically a lock, though. So go ahead and get that checked out. Pair that with one more correct pick. You're cashing out. It's a great way to have action on the big game. This week, I'm looking at the board. I'm selecting more for A.J. Brown on receiving yards, more for Jalen Hurts' passing yardage. I think the Birds are going to throw the ball. And what I love most about Prize Picks, fast, safe withdrawals. When I win, my cash is in my account in as little as 15 minutes. It's super easy. Check out the promos tab to tail any of the super sweet Millie winners big game lineups. So they got suggestions for you. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. So download the app today and make sure you use promo code LOCKEDONMLB. You'll get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. So this is the autopsy. It's an early one of the 2024-2025 Philadelphia Phillies offseason. Because where I sit right now, the way that I see it, I'm not really holding out hope or expecting that there's going to be a big move coming. Like, I don't think all of a sudden, with a couple days till pitchers and catchers reporting, oh, now Alec Boehm is now traded and all of these signings then happen and all this stuff gets opened up and everything gets shifted around. Like, I don't think that's happening. I think Boehm's here to stay. Castellanos here to stay. Ranger Suarez here to stay. Now, I told you Castellanos and Ranger Suarez not getting moved, I don't think. Just the likelihood of that getting done didn't seem plausible to me, but I'm surprised the Boehm thing didn't get done. I am. And that's the whole point of this conversation we're having. Like, are you surprised the Phillies didn't make a big move? I'm frankly floored that the Phillies didn't make a bigger move than what they did. Now, I do think that there's a world where we look back in August or September and we say, wow, that Jesus Luzardo trade with the Miami Marlins is a monster move for the Philadelphia Phillies that created one of the best rotations in baseball, maybe the best rotation in baseball. That's a bigger move than it looks right now. We could be saying that, but I'm not here to project that out. I'm here to look at things in the moment as they are and what the Phillies have done this offseason. They didn't bring back Jeff Hoffman. They didn't bring back Carlos Estevez. Their two highest profile free agents from last year's team are gone. Okay, so that immediately is anti-big move argument. They didn't really change too much in the outfield. They signed Max Kepler, who's a nice player. And I'll tell you honestly, if my brother wasn't a Twins fan, I wouldn't really know all that much about Max Kepler. I'd know he's a nice player who had a big home run season for Minnesota a couple of years ago. And outside of that, I mean, who knows? Could he be something in left field for the Phillies? Sure. He's an average Major League Baseball player. Or at least that's what his career would tell you so far. So that's not a major move. Jordan Romano could be really good for the bullpen. Injured last year. Joe Ross could be very good for the bullpen in a swing role. We'll see. Like, I don't know. There were no home run, and I'm not even talking about like Juan Soto. I'm not talking about guys that were big time acquisitions like trades or like, I don't know, Max Fried going somewhere or something like that. Like even these big name pitchers that could compete for a Cy Young award this year or a couple years in the future, like Corbin Burns. No, the Phillies did not make big moves this offseason, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I'm floored that they didn't because we just had a conversation about Juan Soto signing with the New York Mets and the Dodgers doing what they're doing, getting Roki Sasaki and already having the lineup that they have and all of the guys that like Tanner Scott going to the Dodgers, all of these dudes that end up, Teoscar Hernandez going back to the Dodgers, these guys that end up back in LA or in LA for the first time. You look around the National League or baseball in general and you say, wow, the Phillies watched kind of one-man arms race in LA happen and watched their division get significantly tougher, and they didn't really aggressively – well, see, I don't want to say that. That's where it gets dangerous. I don't want to say they didn't aggressively pursue anybody because they were in conversations about Juan Soto, even though they never expressed full interest like that, and they didn't have the meeting per later reports. But they were at least their name was in the conversation. I don't know what they did with free agents specifically. Like they could have been very close to signing some big name guys, and it just didn't work out for them for whatever reason. So I don't want to say they didn't aggressively pursue enough big name guys, but they didn't land them. And I don't care how much you offer somebody. I don't care how much you talk to somebody. I care about who plays in red pinstripes for the Philadelphia Phillies in 2025. And this is not, I don't want you to confuse this. This is not the Philadelphia Phillies did not do enough this offseason. They could have. They still have a damn good baseball team. They could be predicted to be a top 2 or 3 team in the sport this year, and that puts you firmly in World Series contention status. But am I shocked that they didn't make a bigger move? I am, because it felt like the offseason where you needed to do something to push yourself over the top. And instead, the Philadelphia Phillies said, we're going to try and tinker with things and hope that that works. And maybe they're right. Who am I to know? Listen, the last 2 ends the seasons with going out to the Mets and going out to the Diamondbacks. Nobody expected that. Weird stuff happens all the time. I'm not going to pretend to tell you exactly how the season is going to play out because we don't know. That's why they play the games. But I would have expected Dave Dombrowski to do more. I would have expected John Middleton to pony up more money towards the payroll. And they may have tried, but they didn't get that job done. And it may work out, but this is not how I saw the offseason going. So as we look back on what transpired from the end of the Phillies season to where we are now, just a couple days ahead of pitchers and catchers reporting down to Clearwater. Yeah, shocked that they didn't do more. Again, not necessarily a bad thing, but there are a lot of people out there that do treat this as a bad thing, a lot of Phillies fans. And if that's your read on this, guess what, folks? I'm with you. You're right that they didn't do a lot of big stuff this offseason. Now, again, we will see how it plays out. The good thing is we're getting closer to seeing how it plays out as we get closer to spring training happening. Pitchers and catchers report on the 12th, so that'll be coming up this week. We go back to full episodes starting on Monday, or not full episodes, but a full week of episodes 5 times a week starting on Monday. So our off season is officially over. So we're just about there. We're close. And then we'll get a lot more information on how this thing looks like it's going to play out. But I'm not excited about the Phillies season, right? Like, I'm looking forward to it. I think they're a great team. It's just one of those, you got to have some faith this year with the Philadelphia Phillies. And I would rather have the optimistic approach more, but that's just me. We'll break down more of this coming up in our next episode. I also want to take a look in one of our next episodes at like the depth the Philadelphia Phillies are bringing to spring training and who's going to make the roster and why. So we will take a look at that. I'm going to do another episode tomorrow that'll come out early in the morning before the Super Bowl. So we will get into that. So plenty more content still to come here on Locked On Phillies. But that's all for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. Please make sure, again, you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that helps us, helps you get notifications when new episodes are posted. It's a win-win. It's free and easy to do. Again, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I will talk to you tomorrow on our next episode of Locked On Phillies.